Good day to you. My name is Tony Ballinger from the Fighting Men of Rhodesia YouTube series. We've got Gavin Harrington online today, ex-BSAP. He was posted to quite a few sections of the BSAP, so it should make an interesting talk. We've just battled to get this whole talk going with a bit of technology problems, but hopefully you can see his picture and hear him okay. So, Gavin, welcome to you. It's 9:30 at night in New Zealand, and a beautiful, bright, sunny day here in Salisbury, 10:30 in the morning. How are things your side, all right?
All good, Tony. Yeah, thanks very much for having me. Yeah, no, it's as you said, it's almost 9:30 at night on Saturday evening. We've just been watching our Chiefs play the Blues at Eden Park. So yeah, it's all good. And I think today is our official first day of winter.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, I was thinking it's still nippy here, but what's new with England? Anyway, give us a brief overview of where you were born, raised, schooling, and how you ended up in the police.
Well, I was born in Salisbury. Grew up in a little place called Mount Hamden, which was quite close to Gweeby Agricultural College. My grandparents came from South Africa. My mom and dad met, and they had a small what we used to call here we call it a lifestyle block. It was about 15 acres of land, and my grandfather and my uncle bought it, and they developed that, and that's where I grew up as a kid. I went to Alfred Byte Junior School, and after finishing Alfred Byte, I ended up at Churchill Boys. My mom and dad moved from Mount Hamden to Highlands, where my mother had a hairdressing salon, and a lot of my ex-police mates and people I know, their mothers used to go to my mother for their hairdos and all that sort of stuff. And as kids, we never got away with anything because my mother had such a wide range of friends. She would find out what my brother and I got up to very quickly. And yeah, I ended up going after Churchill, I went to Spess's to finish my O-levels. And a mate of mine had a friend who was in the police, and he used to pop in and see us every now and then. He must have been, I'm not too sure where he was stationed, but he used to pitch up in his uniform, and I think he did a bit of a recruitment drive there for us. And myself and my mate at Spess's, Paul Baird, actually joined the force together. And that's how I came to join the police.
Excellent. And for our foreign viewers, BSAP is a bit of a misnomer. It's British South Africa Police, an unusual colonial name that was kept right through the Rhodesian War years. I think we should have changed it to the Rhodesian Police, my own personal feeling. But anyway, carry on. You entered a depot or whatever you did.
Yeah, I joined on the 5th of January 1976. I was only 17, but because I would have been 18 by the time I passed out, I was allowed to go into training. And the funny thing about it was, because I was 17, I was classed as a cadet. So while all my mates were earning patrol officer salaries, I was earning a cadet's pay, and I think my very first paycheck was about $78. And yeah, so we went into depot on the 5th of January to start our training. And I think it was about 5 months, I think it was altogether. And yeah, we did, because we were regulars, all regular policemen. I signed on for 3 years, and as the regular policeman in training, you had to do equitation, which I loved. I think the interesting thing about that was all the police horses in the stables. They knew that we were obviously new recruits, and I was lucky in the fact that I had ridden before. And in fact, my brother, he used to do a lot of riding, and at one stage represented Rhodesia, if I'm not mistaken, but never actually got his Rhodesian colours. And the chief inspector in charge of equitation was Chief Inspector Pierce, John Pierce, and we used to call him Jed. And he used to take us for our equitation periods, and we used to get up at like 4 o'clock in the morning. We had jodhpurs we had to wear, and puttees, like the old World War I puttees that the soldiers used to wear, and we had to wrap these puttees around our legs from our ankles up to our knees, well, from the knees down, I believe. And they had to have a little square tape at the end that had to be lined up square, and it was tied up in a special way. And obviously, when you were riding, these things used to come undone, and you'd see the guys in front of you, and their puttees would be coming undone. And obviously, the horses would realize that they were new cadets, and man, the horses used to give us some grief. But me being a bit of a horseman before, I was quite I used to enjoy it. It was a good fun. There was a lot of early morning rises because we had to get all our gear ready, saddle the horses, and stand for inspections. And we would do internal rides where we would go into right there by the police rugby grounds. There was a big paddock, and we used to go in there, and we would be doing trotting and cantering, and obviously a lot of the guys had never ridden before. And man, we used to have some laughs. Every now and then we do what they call a canter from front to rear. So the front rider would gallop or canter around the paddock to the rear of the ride and stop, and then the next one would go. And of course, the guys who didn't know how to ride the horse would just take off, and they would be hanging on for grim death, and they would be screaming, "Whoa, whoa!" And next minute, the horse, unbeknown to us, would gallop basically up to Chief Inspector Pierce, stop dead, and off. There would go the recruit over the horse's head, and Jed Pierce would turn around on his horse, and he'd turn around and say, "P.O. so-and-so, who gave you permission to dismount?" And of course, we would just used to crack up. But yeah, that was. I think the equitation was probably the most fondest memories I have of depot. Obviously, we did the drill, PT, law and police instructing, and we also used to learn to do typing. And we would go. We had I think we had a female, she wasn't a policewoman. I think she was an outside typist instructor, and we would have sitting in the office in the classroom, and there would be a big board up on the wall with the alphabet, and then there was lights behind the alphabet, and they would light up. So you'd have to follow on the old typewriter, bashing away there, learning how to type with all your fingers. But needless to say, most of us ended up being real fast two-finger typers at the end of the day. But yeah, that was our depot days. Obviously, when we were in there too, we would be doing guard duties, and we had one which was IC picket, where we would have to. One of us would be IC picket for the night, and we would have to ride around on a bicycle, checking the other guys who were doing guard duties and things like that. And I believe at one stage we were going to do the police display team, I think, but towards the end of the training was actually cancelled because I think obviously in '76 with everything starting to increase, they needed manpower. So we passed out 5 months later, and after that I was posted to the Salisbury Traffic Investigation Section. Which basically that's what it was, investigating traffic accidents. We would have a section officer who would the traffic accident report books, if I'm not mistaken, would be handed. The attending officers would go, and then they would come to us for investigation, and he would go through them and read them up and say, well, this guy's going to be charged with drive without due care or whatever the case may be. And on Saturdays we would have to go into Salisbury Central as it was, and put our traffic sleeves on and walk around and issue parking tickets and basically harass the public. On a Saturday morning, that was our Saturday mornings, but Monday to Friday was all investigative work.
So, what was the worst accident you saw, Gavin?
Probably the worst one I've ever attended was eventually I ended up in control room driving B cars, and I had to go to we had different codes for traffic accidents and various other incidences, but a code 4 would be a serious road crash. Code 5 would be a fatal. And this one happened to be a code 5, and it was out at Hatfield, if I remember correctly. And a young schoolboy, little kid, had been knocked over on his bike, and he'd gone through the front windscreen of the vehicle that hit him. And even to this day, it's probably something that I'll never forget. But all I could smell was cornflakes. It was unbelievable. This little boy, he must have been probably below 10. He must have been 8 or 9. But yeah, that would probably be one of my worst ones that I remembered. But we went to a few fatals. I remember going to a fatal opposite the George Hotel, where a guy rode his E-Type Jag off, hit a lamppost, and yeah, that was a good smash. So yeah, at that sort of like what would have been 18, 19. So we would have experienced quite a lot of trauma with road crashes, but. We we were policemen, and that's what we did. We never really thought about it, I suppose. We just did our job.
And the procedure, you would record what you felt happened and get your tape measure out for skid marks and all that sort of stuff.
Yep, absolutely. If we didn't have if some of us had some chalk, and we'd have to, chalk or map out the positions of the cars, and then we'd have what they call a traffic accident report book, and you'd have to write all the details in there and then draw a plan. So then eventually that would go to investigations, and that they would then look at that and make the investigative and their findings on what was in that little booklet. Before I got to that stage, I'd left traffic, and I applied to go to control room. That's where I drove the Petrol B cars. I did a 2-week, I think it was a 2-week driving course at Cranbourne. Yeah, we did Petrol. It was about 2 weeks, I think. That was really, really cool fun, actually. I've got to be honest. There would be three of us, 4 of us in the vehicle, or 3 of us and an instructor. And yeah, we would drive around Salisbury, learning in Peugeots with a floor change, which is very unusual because most of the cars in those days came out with column shifts, but the Petrol cars all came out with floor changes, 4-speed box and reverse. And yeah, we would drive around learning high speed. And then one of the courses we did was called a bandit course, or bandit chase, where one of the instructors would drive a plane vehicle, and we would be supposedly on patrol, and then this vehicle would pull out in front of us and commit an offence, and we would have to chase it at speed, and at the same time giving a running commentary on the road conditions, traffic conditions, and yeah, keep him under observation. And we would know that something was going to happen, and the bandit car would disappear down a side road. You'd follow left or right down that side road, and as you turn left, the bandit car would be reversing at you. Yeah. So you'd have to take evasive action. So yeah, the Petrol. I really enjoyed driving the B. We used to call them B cars, the old Peugeot. Yeah, it was. I really enjoyed the control room days. I must be honest, it was a great job.
Did they take you out to a runway or something and put water on it and see how you could cope in water?
We did. I can't remember whether we actually did that. I know that the guys did that on the skid pan. I can't remember whether I actually did it or not, to be very honest with you. I know that I know that the guys, some courses did it, but I've got to be honest, I can't remember actually doing it myself. We might have been shown it.
Were you armed as a B car cop?
Yes. When we started our shift, we would draw an Uzi, shotgun, and an LP1, and the shotgun would be locked in the boot, and the Uzi would be in like a not a gun. It would be locked in the B car next to the gear shift with a padlock on it, where you'd lock that away, and yeah, the rest would be carried in the boot.
And the LP1 was a P40 handgun, wasn't it?
Yeah, the LP1, yeah, 9mm.
Yeah.
And towards the end of the situation, when things got really hotted up, we would get a directive from upstairs to say, okay, boys, you can be armed, you can carry a sidearm, and but we weren't allowed to expose the P1. They had to be covered, so the old holsters we had the old leather holster and had to walk around. It was just crazy, but yeah.
The funniest incident I ever had, which is in the book I wrote, up at Vic Falls, when there was a very big crossing into Rhodesia. Well, the hotel there, Elephant Hills, had been revved, and we wanted to go and do a follow-up, and I was on R&R, so I went to the police station, as we were told at Vic Falls, if you're off duty, go there and join the fun. So I volunteered to go on the boat on the Zambezi River to go and intercept the tours going back to Zambia, and I thought I would have been put in a 2.5 or a 4.5 or a one of these other armored vehicles, but the vehicle they gave us was one of those little police R4 Renaults, with the gearbox in the dashboard.
Yeah,
and so
the Rixie taxi.
Yeah, we were shoved into this pop-up toaster and sent off down to the harbour, literally where the tours were firing their B10. And anyway, that was the way the police operated, but also had some very professional units, police support units and so on. paramilitary. Yeah. So
It's
carry
funny
on.
though. Just to digress, just to go back a bit. Just after I passed out and was in traffic investigations, I was posted to a thing called Teams. Don't ask me what Teams meant, but there was it was out at Chinnamora, just past Borrowdale. I think it was past Borrowdale, or yeah, I think it was past Borrowdale. And there was a section officer in charge, myself, and we had a sergeant and 4 constables. And it's one of those photographs I sent you there. You'll see us standing next to the mine-proof Land Rover. But what made me, every time I look at that picture, I giggle to myself, because that would have been about 76. And obviously the war around sort of Salisbury at that stage was non-existent. And I'd be sent out to do like district policeman in duties, where I'd be serving warrants, and the constables and my sergeant would go out and investigate stock theft. But we would all jump in the Land Rover, myself driving, the sergeant in the front seat, and the other 4 and the 3 constables riding in the back of the mine-proof Land Rover. It's like, what was all that about? It was just, one of those things. And yeah, it was. I did that. Was 6 weeks. I did that for, and yeah, at that stage, it was just really playing district policeman. We wore grey shirts, not and normal police shorts, but and socks and shoes. And we would go out, and I had an FN. Take the FN with you. And I think the most serious thing that we came across is we were driving through the bush, and we went through this really soft patch of mud, and I got the bloody Land Rover stuck, and because the mine-proofing was underneath, it just caused a vacuum, and we couldn't, no matter how much we pushed, shoved, or whatever, we couldn't get the Land Rover out of this mud pack. And eventually we managed to coerce some locals, and we hooked up some of the cattle, and that's how we got the Land Rover unstuck.
Yeah.
And I got back to the police station, and well, it was a house really, and I can't remember the SO's name. He was the section officer who was in charge. Didn't even worry. He didn't even give a bat an eyelid that we were away for so long, and he didn't know where we were. But that was, in those days, there was nothing to worry about around Salisbury. There wasn't any danger or anything at that stage. But yeah, that was. I always laugh when I see that picture about us driving around a mine-proof Land Rover and everybody else sitting in the back.
And the police at that stage had the old cute colonial thing of you having to buy your own food, and you got a fee for it or something.
Yeah, you had a choice. You either took your the old the rat packs, or you went and bought your own food and you got paid for it. So yeah, whenever later on, when I actually got into SIS, we would go to the police dry canteen at Morris Depot and stock up with all our food. And eventually, what we did with the sergeants and the constables, we would share our food, and we would buy the tins of bully beef and all that sort of stuff, and they would buy the suds, the mealy meal, and all that, and we would just all put all our food together, and that's how we lived for 6 weeks with our rations, and we got paid. It was called TNS.
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, after the 6 weeks, when I was on SAS, we did 6 weeks in, 10 days out, very similar to what the army did. And yeah, we would go, and we used to make quite a good packet actually out of that TNS, because we get all our stuff from the Morris Depot dry canteen. And yeah, it was strange that day. Yeah, we got paid TNS. As I said, made good money on the TNS.
When one buys food, it conjures up these ridiculous images in my mind of having 4 candlesticks and roast beef and all that. But the old rat packs weren't that enthusing, were they?
No, I remember we used to get them as well, but we would just go for the tins of fruit.
Yeah.
The oranges and that, and yeah, that was our desserts. And yeah, so the constables would make up the sudser and the relish, and we would provide the meat and that, and then we'd have the tins of oranges, and fruit salad was another small one, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Long time ago.
I don't know about the police rations, but in the army we used to get these very hard biscuits, and they were massive. You got those as well. My favorite was to soak them overnight in water, if I had any water in the area we were in. And the next morning they'd be all swollen, and you'd put it on you'd get your burner going, and you'd put it on the top, and you make a bit of toast out of it, and then you stick jam on it. The tubes of jam. That was a good breakfast. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, those dog biscuits, Dog biscuits.
Yeah.
Yeah, it conjures up fun memories. Actually, I know that at the time you always think of the bad stuff, but when you look back on it, there was some good. We had some good fun, actually, very good fun.
Absolutely, very
So
good.
yeah, just after that, I ended up in control room driving the patrol cars, which was as I said, I really enjoyed it, and we would the good thing about the sort of like the boring times, I would say, would be the morning shift. We used to do a 7 to 3, 3 to 11, then 11 to 7 night shift, a week at a time, and afternoon shift was probably the best because you'd get all the pubs would all be open, and you know you'd have a lot of a variety of stuff to do from 11 to after hours, and of course we always had the RLI troopies at the cock door, and yeah, many stories about that, and Club Tomorrow fights, and yeah, when I think back, a lot of the time we wouldn't really like to arrest the guys on R&R when they were in Salisbury. We would rather like, I used to, when they, if anything got out of hand, and of course if we arrested anybody, we had to call the MPs, and man, we just didn't like that. I would rather the guys just spend a couple of hours in the cells and let them go home. But once they called the MPs in there, I used to feel so sorry for them. But you know, it depends on who's in charge. We would have an inspector. They were on a relief in control. We'd have an inspector, 2 section officers, and then probably, I don't know if I remember, maybe there'd be about at least 5 or 6 cars, patrol cars, B cars on the road, and then you'd also have what we call panda cars, which would be the Nissan pickups and things like that, which the guys who didn't have their B car licenses would drive. We would also have sergeants out in their pandas doing attending calls and stuff like that. But yeah, control room was good. We used to see a lot, man, alive. Plenty of suicides, gosh.
Sure.
And of course, being policemen, we would have a little bit of a dark humor. And I remember going to a suicide where this guy shot himself with an FN, put it against his chest and shot himself. And when we got there, he was in a chair leaning over the FN and looked up at the ceiling, and there were 2 bullet holes. And again, it's just how I guess is the way we dealt with things. We looked up at the ceiling and we said, "Man, it's good grouping."
But how did he fire 2 bullets when you're committing suicide?
It must have been some sort of reaction on him. I don't know, but that's what was also unusual. It was 2 rounds.
Yeah.
You know, which is very unusual. I've been to suicides where they've cut their wrists in the bath and all sorts of stuff.
Terrible.
All sorts of stuff. Yeah, and you know, one of the other worst things that we had to do, we would have to go and pass death messages, where people would, i.e., guys being killed, we would be given the task to go into the house and knocking the family up and saying, "Listen, you know, we're sorry to hear, but to tell you this, but you know, this is what's happened." It was just shocking.
Did they give you any training for that? I mean, that's quite a psychological thing.
No, in those days it was right. If it take a WPO with you, the woman patrol officer, and knock on the door and pass the news. It's no training.
Wow.
You just dealt with it. It's I suppose when I look back and look at my life and certain things that have happened, I suppose that there would have been some sort of, I mean, post-traumatic stress disorder in those days wasn't even thought of. You know, it was like take a concrete pill and harden up. You know, I mean,
that must have been a terrible shock for the family. I mean, they must have gone ape shit sometimes.
Yep. Oh, they just break down in front of you, and you know, you what do? You try and comfort them as best you can. And I mean, at the end of the day, that's probably why we would take a woman patrol officer with us, because at least there'd be some sort of female contact there to try and, you know, pacify the people. Or, you know, no, we were just young policemen. Go and do that. You know, here you go, death message.
Was that across the board, blacks and whites, that you had to deliver messages to?
I never actually delivered any to blacks, but yeah, there would be a situation where they would have to, you know, somebody would have to go and tell them. Yeah, it was part of the job. You just get out there and do it. You know.
Have you ever felt that you've suffered from PTSD in any way?
Yeah, I think I have, probably, in as much as for quite a long period of my life, I kept looking for something. I don't know what it was, but I was never really satisfied with what I was doing. I always, I couldn't settle down. It's only since I've met Annie that I've settled down, and I've been living now in New Zealand for 18 years, which is really stable. It's probably the first time in my life for the last 18 years that I've actually been stable.
I encourage you to listen to episode 109, Barry Zoratine. I think that's how you pronounce his surname. Episode
10.
I think it's episode 109. He gives a very good talk on PTSD, and he actually has become a lecturer and done a lot of study and helped a lot of people through it. One of the interesting things he said is that the entire Rhodesian community suffers from PTSD because there's a lack of conclusion. It's never ended in our minds. Whereas if you've gone to the Kuwait War or Iraqi War, that's ended. But for us, we've been pushed out into the world, and it's something that never ends in our hearts, really.
Well, yeah, I mean, just to jump forward a few years, I got very involved after I came back from SIS and went back to control. I got involved in the SWAT teams in Salisbury, and my inspector on my SWAT team was Peter Gibson, who's well known, ex-dog section, and Pete was our inspector in charge of our SWAT team, and he got very friendly with a Brigadier Van Drucht down in South Africa, who was running the Speciaal Tagmag in Pretoria. And those guys were, I don't know if you remember anything about this, but there was a massive bank at the Volkskas Bank in Pretoria, and there was a big shootout, and the Special Task Force were involved in that. But those guys used to come up to Salisbury, and we used to train some of them. And that's how Pete became very friendly with them. And after independence, he said to us, "Why don't you guys come down and join us?" So a couple of us did. We went down there and joined them. But I think what you just said there now about nothing. There's never any closure, and I think that's probably what affected me for a very long time. That's maybe what I was looking for, was some sort of closure, and there was nothing. I could never stick to anything.
Absolutely.
And I think probably that is probably a bit of PTSD. More than likely, I have given it some thought, but not a hell of a lot, to be honest. And I guess I think that's very, 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 very pertinent, and a very pertinent thing about that is that there's no closure.
It's an excellent talk, and he also gives the name of some books you can buy from him, which I believe have really revolutionized a lot of people's lives. But Gavin, moving on from your beat cars, what did you do after that?
Well, just before I just got my patrol car license, and I did my police anti-terrorist unit selection course. Obviously, being a regular policeman, that's what you expected to do. And Reg Seekings, he was our instructor. And man, we were basically really, really scared of him. And he was a fierce guy, Reg. And I don't know if you've watched a program called the Rogue Heroes.
No, I haven't. But I know he was one of the former founding members of the SAS.
Yeah, he was with Reg Seekings, Paddy Mayne, and David Sterling. If you ever get your hands on a movie called Rogue Heroes, it's excellent. All about David Sterling, Paddy Mayne, Reg Seekings, and the original crew that started the SAS, and very, very good watch. And it brought, when I saw Reg in that, I thought to myself, no wonder we were scared of him, because he was fierce in those days. He was one tough guy. Anyway, did my party selection. I did one call up with Partu down in Ritengi area, and unbeknown to me, Inspector Paddy Martin was member in charge of Partu at that stage, and I didn't know this, but he stuck my name down for SIS, and I'd gone back. I just got my patrol car course, and I'd been driving B cars probably for a couple of months, and the next one I get this message: you have to report to BSAP. Hard square, Morris Depot, you're on SIS. And there was 2 sticks of 10 each.
And what does SIS stand for, Gavin?
Special Investigation Section.
Okay.
At that stage, I had no idea what this was all about. I didn't realize why. I knew it had something to do with going to the bush. That was it. And I've subsequently done quite a lot of reading. In fact, on almost the same posting that I saw of yours, there was a question there. One of the guys put up a question about SIS, and I've subsequently found out that it was all formed just before the Scouts were officially formulated, and it was to do with the police sending in a team into areas and basically being, I won't say pseudo, and nowhere like the Scouts, but we were basically military. Part of my SIS training was myself and another guy were put on a NCO's course with the Army, and we were with them for a month. So we were policemen learning how to be soldiers. We did everything from basic demolition course to first medic courses to patrolling to ground to air, calling in fire force, all that sort of stuff. I mean, it was intense. And we were there a month, myself and this other guy. In the meantime, we'd also, in the two teams, there were two teams, 10 guys in each. So we had 5 white guys and 5 African police, 1 sergeant, 4 constables. And I was given the rank of what they call Lance Section Officer. So I was the stick leader. And we were then brought back to Salisbury and did some training again. And part of that training, we were actually with Part 2 and as instructors training police reserve to do Part 2 duties before we actually went out. So I suppose when I look at it, we were given quite a good grounding as policemen being soldiers, which was really strange. I mean, we for 9 months, I wasn't a policeman anymore. I was a soldier. Basically, that's what, because we did everything from OPs to patrolling, everything that you think an army stick would do, that's what we did. The only thing we didn't do would be like fire force duties. We would be dropped in by helicopter. We had to walk everywhere, being policemen. And I started off in my stick, both sticks, I think, if I'm not mistaken. We were sent to Jock Matoko, where we were under a guidance of a guy called Rob Parker, who I've subsequently found out was one of the original SIS stick leaders. And he had some great success in that area. We were with them for a month. When I say with them, we operated in that area for a month. I think we had, if I remember correctly, we had one incident where we called out fire force. We'd been on an OP for a couple of days, and we'd seen the normal sort of local movement in and out of a gomo, taking food, and we watched them for days. And also being policemen doing a soldier's job, it was like, oh my word, do we call out fire force? And then they're going to say, look at those bunch of idiots. What do they know about it? So, we deliberated about this. What do we do? We don't want to call them out, and then because it'll go back to the jock that the bloody police call sign called us out, and it was a lemon. So, but eventually we called them out, and I don't know. I can't remember. I think they made contact. I honestly don't remember much. It's a long time ago, but yeah, we had that. We were there for a month, and then we were transferred from there down to Rhodesia, where we operated there for a short period of time, basically patrolling OPs, going on local int. And then from there, we went up to Recife, Jock Recife, and we were given this task. There was in the middle of all of this, there was this coach full of tourists, and we were told you have to take and escort this tourist bus to the Malseta, to the hotel in I think it was Chimani Hotel. And yeah, we had to guard these tourists for a couple of days. It was like, oh my word, in the middle of all this chaos, there we guarding tourists. Anyway, we had a lovely. I remember we all sat down in the dining hall. All of us, all 10 of us, sat in one table, mixed with the tourists. We had a great time, and that lasted for about 3 or 4 days. And we ended up then going to Nyanga, and then basically ended up at Rwangwi, which was on the border of Rhodesia and Mozambique. Rwangwi, Nyamaropa, I think, was further south, and then further north was the Jock Matoko area.
So how did the SIS differ from the standard Part 2 stick then? What were your tasks different?
I don't think so. We were just, I likened it to sort of like an army patrol. You would get briefed and say, at that stage, that Thrasher area, it is Thrasher, yeah, that's Thrasher, yeah. That was more like, I found out, because I read a lot, I've also got a quite a good library on books of Rhodesia and I've read a lot about it. And that area was like a transit area at one stage where they were getting huge groups going through that area, and we were told, right, you're going. We're suspected to come in through this area, and you're going to go and do OP. So we would just go out and do OPs and OPs and OPs and watch and watch and watch. We never actually saw anything on our OPs. I've got to be honest; it was pretty monotonous patrolling that area. But we had a few contacts. It's a crazy thing as well. We get this task that they've got the Ministry of Roads who are coming to Nyanga. Now, Nyanga Police Station was in the middle of Nyanga town, and to where Rwangwi was about 80 to 90 kilometers away. So that was you can imagine, a dangerous road to travel on. I subsequently found out that a couple of my friends were killed in that area after we left on the same road. And I've often talked to the guys who we were in the stick together and say, I still don't get over how we used to travel that road probably in 6 weeks, maybe 3 or 4 times, do a resupply or have to go into Nyanga to go and do something. And we never got ambushed on that road.
Was that north of Burma Valley?
Yes, it's if you can picture that part of Rhodesia, the Gaiarese River separates Mozambique and Rhodesia, and our closest fire force was Doc Motoko. So we were kind of like north. It was definitely north of Burma, the Burma Valley. We were right up almost. If you look at the Thrasher and Hurricane operation areas on that bottom right hand, the bottom line that separates, we were like in that top area, in that bottom area there. We did a few patrols on the Mozambique border. Again, didn't see much, but again, crazy thing. We would get this message. We'd have to go into Nyanga and pick up these roads department guys who were coming to us to go on the. You can picture. So you get to Rwangwi. There's a road that goes up north towards Motoko, and then there's one that sort of like goes south down towards the Burma Valley in that area, and you get one road that goes towards Nyanga. So it's kind of like a Y. That's like the main road, and they wanted us to take these roads department guys up towards Motoko to go and look at this bridge. Why? I don't know. We came across a couple of the old Rhodesian Defence Force, the coloured guys used to do the guarding. Anyway, they went up and had a look at the bridge. On the way back, what happens? We get ambushed. It's just, we knew something was going to happen. I mean, and I'll never forget it. We had a crocodile with the guys in it. We had a hyena with the roads department guys, and 2 of my guys were in there, and myself and another guy, Dave, were driving behind in a Land Rover. And I'll never forget it. They let the bloody crocodile go through, and the hyena was in front of us. And I remember whether it was an RPG-2 and an RPG-7, I don't know, but it went underneath the hyena and out the other side. And that's when all hell broke loose. We stopped just before the killing ground, and we had the old the Land Rover with the AKs on the solenoid mounted buttons on the dashboard. You push the button and the AKs. So we hit those. Luckily, sideways ones went. And we opened up, and eventually everybody debussed, and we did the normal debust and the extended line, and off we go towards the ambush position. And of course, the leg dip before we got there. We found a couple of firing positions, and the only injuries we had were the roads department guys climbing out the back of the hyena and burning the arms of the hot barrels for FN. That was one of the incidents we had. And the other one, soldiers now being back to being policemen. At Rwangwi was actually a police station. It was newly built, and if you look at those pictures that I sent, it was all camouflaged. It had a police cell block, very, very modern police station out in the middle of nowhere. Quite a big area. It had quarters for all the staff, all the African police, all of us, all had our own rooms. It was really well built, and there was a PO, a senior patrol officer in charge of the police station, and there was a young PO that was out there, and he was in his. It was his. The one occasion he had to go and serve, I think it was a summons, believe it or not, to some guy in a kraal. So we found the kraal. on the map and said, right, so off we go. We drive as far as we can go because it was quite a long way to get there. We all debus. We leave a guy at the trucks to guard the vehicles, form an extended line, and we're walking towards the village. And we're walking through this open maize field. All the maize had been harvested, so you just had you can imagine just the little mounds with a little stubby the tail, the roots of the maize plant sticking up, eh? And the next minute, one of my constables, I'll never forget this, he yells out, Mira, wait, and opens up. And that's again. So we all hit the deck, and now these rounds are flying. I look up, and there's rockets exploding in the sky, and we're thinking, holy crap, what the heck's going on? Nowhere to hide. You're like digging, you're in an open mealie field. And the young patrol officer, I'm not going to mention any names because they're all out there. And he goes, I'll run out of ammunition. So I take an FN magazine out of my chest webbing because we just took water bottles and ammunition. We weren't going far, we were going to go and serve a summons and come back. And I threw the magazine over and hit him on the back, and he goes, I'm hit. Anyway, we get up and we advance. We go through because we're all trained. We tell him to follow us. We do the extended line, fire with movement. We get up, go through the position. And man alive, we figured there must have been at least, I don't know, there must have been at least 60 in the group. At least 60. There was about 15 or 20 buckets of meal and meat. It was a big group. And we even found an old supersonic transistor radio with the record still going around on it. I'll never forget that. And why they legged it, I'll never know. I mean, there was maybe 10 of us. But we figured there was at least, I mean, you can imagine how much food that would feed. That's a lot of food. Anyway, we picked up the normal sort of abandoned AK magazines and stuff like that. And yeah, the other exciting episode we had on there at Rwangwi was we'd come back from a patrol, and below Rwangwi police station was built up on a gomo, and down this hill below us was a small internal affairs keep, very small. It was probably about the size of a rugby field. One INTEF guy and his INTEF staff. It wasn't a keep; it was just a small INTEF keep base. And all they used to do is look after the local agricultural officer and stuff like that. They didn't do a hell of a lot. But they had a nice pub. And we came back from patrol, and we thought we'll go down to the INTEF guys and go and have a beer with them. Anyway, one beer turned into a couple. The radio was playing, and everything was hunky dory, and we were having a good laugh there. And then next minute, man, we hear this bang, and then a couple more bangs, and then rifle fire, and they attacked the camp. Anyway, we all scuttled out the pub, into the first bunker we could, and started looking around. And you can just see the tracer coming, man. It was incredible sight, and the mortars were going off, and an incredible sound. And we turned around. There was myself and the other 4 guys with us, and we couldn't find the internal affairs guy. And he was an old guy. When I say old, we were sort of like 19. So him being 40, probably an old guy. And we say, we used to call him Dad. Where's Dad? And we looked, and he wasn't with us. And we thought, shit, he's still in the building. Anyway, so two of us, myself and another guy, ran back and grabbed. He was lying on the floor, going, "I'm going to die." I said, "Get off the bloody floor and come." We dragged him, stuck him into the bloody into the bunker, and he finally got himself together and starts opening up. Anyway, long story short, it all calms down. We don't go anywhere. That night we obviously stand to. Next morning we get up, and man, to this day I don't know how come none of us were actually hurt. Nobody, even in the internal affairs guys, nobody was injured. We picked up, sounds weird, we picked up 60 82 millimeter fins in the camp, and 80 60 mil and 60 82 mil in the camp. These guys, they must have had they must have been in there. I reckon that somebody had been in there, paced the camp out, and they didn't hit any buildings. Nobody was injured, but you can imagine the amount of mortars going off in a small space like that. The only injury we had, and I'll never forget this, the internal affairs guy, the sergeant, I think his rank was, he had a blister on the inside of his palm of his right hand, where he'd been firing his 303 rifle. That's how many times he'd loaded that bloody gun. He had a blister there.
Amazing.
Yep. And nobody else got injured. Nobody. The police camp up the hill, they revved that. It had a blast wall in front of the charge office. It was a police station. A 75 mil recoilless rifle hit that thing, hit the blast wall, and that's where it stopped, thank God. But they revved that camp, and that camp was probably 3 or 4 times bigger than the INTAF keep, and they didn't hit anybody. Yep. We did a sweep the next morning. We found one dead in there. Again, numerous firing positions. And I can't remember the old machine gun, the big one. Not the RPD. There was a bigger one than that had there was piles of doppies there, piles of them. They gave it a good stonking. They really did. But again, to this day, I'm amazed how come none of us got injured. Incredible. To this day, I don't know how.
Was it a 12.7? Was it like 50 cal, a big one?
Yeah, the big one. It was 12. Is it a PP something?
PPK.
I think so. That's bigger than the RPD, I think.
Yeah, I'm a little bit rusty on the bigger weapons.
Yeah.
That the terrorists. Yeah.
It was a bigger shell. I remember that, but a pile of them. Yeah, and one did, and all they took all his gear away. But again, we found lots of stuff there. But I was never lucky enough to get myself an AK bloody bayonet. Never ever. the old one with the wire cutters on it. I never got lucky. But yeah, my only regret is I wish we'd taken more pictures.
Yeah.
But we were told you go into an operation area, no cameras, and we listened. We were policemen. That's what we did. I wish I didn't. I wish I'd taken more pictures, though. But yeah,
I'm glad that a lot of guys ignored that rule, because I've got thousands upon thousands of photographs that I've collected.
I wish I'd taken more. I really do. From that day on, whatever I do, I take pictures now. I've got pictures of everything I've done. But yeah, that's probably one of my regrets, is not taking enough pictures. I don't know why, but yeah. So after SIS, I think we were there for about 9 months. I went back to control room, and Pete Gibson, who was to become my SWAT inspector, was the member in charge of full relief when I went back to control room. And I started again. I'd passed my section officer's promotion, so I was a section officer on full relief. So yeah, as a section officer, you would be in charge of taking the parade, parading the policemen on duty, allocating them their patrol cars and their call signs, and where they would be patrolling. And yeah, that opened up another avenue, another chapter of my police career, was control room. As I said, I really enjoyed control room. We saw a lot, and at that stage, so we would be, that would be 78 into 79, and
where was control room situated in Salisbury?
Salisbury Central.
Salisbury Central, right, down by the bus station.
Yeah, and they started building the new one at that stage as well. In fact, before I finished my police career, we moved into the brand new station at Salisbury Central, which was in those days was like the state of the art. Everything was just brand new. Control room was all carpeted. There was proper sort of like bays where the phones would be, and officers would be sitting in there taking phone calls. Yeah, so control room was good.
Did you?
Yeah, we used to get up to some mischief in the control room days. Man, I suppose I could get into trouble for saying this one day, but who the hell cares? So it's 50 odd years, 60 odd years ago, man. We used to go into the Salisbury showgrounds, and we play a thing called tag on night shift when it was boring. And the thing you had to do was you had to chase each other and keep as close as you can to the car in front of you as you could. And you'd be driving around the showgrounds, and we used to go and do it during the Salisbury show as well. And you'd see all the security guards on the various stands looking at these police cars running around that bloody showgrounds, thinking, well, these policemen are absolutely crazy. They're going so fast. But it was our driving skill. And I'll never forget, on one occasion, we were driving around there, and the next minute there was this almighty bang, and these two cars crashed. 2 police cars, 2 B cars hit each other, and I've never seen the rest of us get out of that bloody showground so fast and get as far away as we could, because those guys now had to make up a story as to what happened. So there was that incident, and another one. There's a couple I'll never forget. I had a very good Constable Maura, the guy that's in that photograph with me. I'm at my mom and dad's place, and we used to take the car there on a Sunday and go and wash it. And we were out towards the Mablerain area, and we got a report of a break-in at a butchery. So we get out there and we have a look around. By that stage, the butchery's been broken into, and obviously the thieves had taken some meat and all the rest of it, but they'd long gone. And myself and the constable, we were sitting in the car talking about something. And next minute, we look across there in the headlights of the car, and we see this dog running across the headlights with it looked like a human arm in his mouth. We thought, what the heck's all that about? So we get out and we follow this dog, where the dog had come from, and we find this huge pile of joints that the guys had nicked out the butchery, and they'd stashed them in the bush. And obviously, with us arriving, we'd scared them away, and they'd had all the loot was lying there, all covered in grass because it'd come out the freezer. Anyway, so I said to the constable, which of those roasts would you like? So he goes, I'll have that one over there. So we had a couple of roasts, took all the rest back to the butchery, and said we found all this recovered stolen property, which I don't think they would have used anyway because it was covered in dirt and grass. But we hadn't seen that dog running through the headlights with the joint in his mouth. We would never have found that meat. Never. Strange. Yeah. But yeah, and he was an excellent constable, man. We were also doing a night shift. We were patrolling in the Belvedere area, and we'd seen these guys. They'd stolen something and they were running down the road. And this constable, I was driving after them, and he jumped out of the patrol car on the run, on the move, and caught one of them. These guys, some of those constables were absolutely phenomenal guys, man. I tell you what, brilliant. And we would back. I mean, the Americans called it in the old days. They'd call it a salt and pepper crew. But we would back each other up. If you went to a fight at say Cocktail or whatever, he was right behind you. He would never leave you. The guys were just so good. We had such a good relationship with the constables on our shifts. Really, really good guys, man. I felt sorry for a lot of those guys, because we all left, and where do they go? I've often thought about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, really, really, really good guys, man. And excellent policemen, brilliant policemen, and not scared of anything. Nothing. I mean, yeah, we would. If you go somewhere, it's like we would never think about going into a dark place to look for things. Never. You would just go. That was your job. You're a policeman. There was that one, and then one Saturday. In fact, I've seen pictures of this on the BSAP website. The Chancellor House bomb.
Oh, yeah.
That winner. Well, myself and Maura were in our patrol car. We were going down Union Avenue just before I think it was 2nd Street, and the next minute there's this almighty boom, and the car lifted off the ground. That's how close we were, and that was the Chancellor House bomb. That was just, yeah. I saw. I wish I'd had a camera, but obviously there are pictures on the BSAP website that you can see the Chancellor House. And when I saw that, I didn't realize. I mean, I'd forgotten the damage it done, but thank God they'd cocked the timing up and it hadn't gone off on a Saturday morning when the shoppers were there. And just so lucky, so lucky, man. Yep. Also, during that time, because we were Part 2 trained and whatever, we would have what they call a Part 2 car. The B car would be have all your gear in it, so full chest webbing, water bottles, so that if something happened, that Part 2 car, as they called it, would respond. The one occasion we get this phone call from this woman, and she's out Arcturus way, and she said, "I can hear gunfire." And we go, yep, there's definitely gunfire. I can hear gunfire coming from the next door neighbor's farm. Okay. So myself and my mate, Hamish, 2 cars. Hamish was on the other SI stick at the same time I was. We ended up in control them together. We head out towards Arcturus with our constables and get all the gear on. And we get out to where we think it is, and we sit, and there's no noise. We can't hear a thing, nothing. And the next minute you hear this, and there's silence. And we thought, shit, she's right, there's gunfire. But it's like far away. And we sit, and we walk, we lock the cars, we get all our gear. Now we walk in the dark. We don't know where we're going. And we hear this, just like gunfire. Long story short, we find out that's an irrigation spray, big one, and it was hitting the bloody banana tree leaves. So as it go around, you hear the and it would stop, and then as it came around, it would go again. Yep, that was the gunfire. Banana tree leaves. Yeah, man. And the other time we were in control room, and I actually took the call. We up on the wall there was all the lights telling which numbers were calling, and there were 3 999 ones. One of them comes up, I answer it, and this woman goes, "The boys are here, and the boys are here, and they're attacking. They're attacking." And I say, "Where? What's happening?" "Oh no, the boys are here and they're attacking." Anyway, me being me, and we want to get there. There's action now. We're going. Drop the phone. Off we go. We find out she's in the Gun Hill area. So we get there and we find out, long story short, that it's the Greek Archbishop's house that they've attacked. They put a rocket into the fence, into the gate, because he's got a big like Greek, not like coat of arms on the wall. And afterwards we realized, and if I'm not mistaken, I probably can stand to be corrected, but General Walls, I think, lived in that area. And I think they had mistaken the Archbishop's house for his house and attacked the Greek Archbishop's house instead of Walls' house. So that was a bit of fun. And then towards the end of my career in control room, I joined the SWAT team by then with Pete Gibson, and it was Christmas, 78 to 79, Christmas Day, and I had I was a section officer in control room, and we had a brand new inspector come on in charge of the shift. Pete Gibson had now taken over SWAT full time, and the inspector, because he comes out in the patrol cars now. My call sign is now MI, Mobile Inspector. So I'm with the inspector, and we go for our meal break at 5th Avenue single quarters into the kitchens there. So we have our meal, and he says, "Oh, should we have a beer before? It is Christmas." Okay. So we having a beer, and we have a little small handheld radio in those days, and it goes shots fired, MI control, shots fired, 5th Avenue Mall. So he goes, "What?" So it's literally from 5th Avenue single quarters to the mall is like 3 minutes drive. So we get there, straight outside. There's a B car parked outside. No, we can't see any other officers. And there's gunfire coming from the restaurant above on the mall there. And I mean, it's heavy gunfire, FN gunfire, and this guy's going ballistic in there. I get on the on the radio, and I call. At that stage, sell-ups had been established at Salisbury Central, and I get all the sell-ups, and I call out the SWAT team because it's gunfire. Anyway, what happened was this guy had a domestic with his wife, with his girlfriend, and had gone into the restaurant there and found the supposed guy who was involved, and he'd shot him dead in the restaurant. There's always a funny side of things there. A waiter had jumped out the front window above where we'd stopped, and he was on a ledge there, and he was telling us where the guy was. This white guy was in there, obviously some military. He had an FN, and he was just firing, man. There was rounds going everywhere. Anyway, SWAT team arrives. Now I'm in control, but my team's on standby. So I say to the guys, "Bring all my gear with me. I'm not going to miss out on this." Anyway, we were there. I think it takes us about 5 hours to get this guy. It's a classic SWAT situation where we're trying to talk to him. They phone him, as you can imagine on the movies. It's something that as a SWAT guy, that's what you've trained to do. Besides going on all the lemons we went to in the townships and looking and not finding anything, this was classic. So we get in there. 5 hours later, this guy decides to give up. He comes out and refuses to put his hands down, and one of the other guys shoots him in the shoulder. He's obviously high on something, and he turns around. All he said was, "Look what you've done to my arm." Anyway, he was arrested, and yeah, that was 5 hours it took us. That incident was probably the highlight. It's a lot of. In fact, I was talking to a buddy of mine who lives in Texas, just north of Dallas, who's on the same team with me, and we were talking about that. And he says, "I'll never forget it," because he was going. He had his ex-wife with him when they were going to his ex-wife's mother's house for Christmas lunch, and he had to drop her off there and come back because we'd been called out. Yeah. That was a classic SWAT scenario. But yep, we were prepared. We were going to go in there. Because as a SWAT team, everybody has a set kind of like duty to do. So when you get briefed, you say, right, this is where we're going. you're on the outside, you're at the back, you're at the front, and you guys are entry team. So the entry team would go in, as you see on the movies. We would go into the premises. And yeah, at that stage, we would have done entry into that restaurant if he hadn't come out. We would have gone in and got him. A couple of weeks after that, another scenario came about where same thing, domestic. And at that stage, I left control room, and I was in crime prevention unit then, plain clothes, in charge of a team of we had about 30 or 40 constables, all plain clothes, and they would be out looking for suspects and crims and all sorts of stuff. And we got a call that this guy held up in a brand new set of flats in the avenues, in Fife Avenue area, and myself, and there was three of us. Again, the guys will know who. I'm not going to mention any names, but my boss Pete Gibson was member in charge against SWAT, and I'll never forget this. We were going to go in there and shoot this guy. We decided if he was in there with a gun and he did anything, we were going to shoot him. Anyway, we eventually go in, we do all our procedures, and Pete Gibson, all he's saying to us is, guys, don't shoot him. Guys, don't shoot him. Anyway, we find this guy hiding in a cupboard. Anyway, he comes out, we arrest him. It's another classic sort of SWAT scenario. So yeah, we had some good fun in SWAT. A lot of lemons, my gosh, a lot of lemons. Many nights in the townships, hiding in bloody holes, crawling in bloody mealie fields. Yeah, it was a different experience, but yeah, when I look back, good times, actually, very good times.
Did you have special training for the SWAT, being a SWAT member?
Yep. Yes, we would heaps of training.
Heliborne stuff and all that.
We didn't do it. Just after independence, the original SWAT teams were all stood down. We were told unceremoniously to hand all our weapons in, because at one stage we had in my own home, I had an RPD, cut down RPD, Uzis, AKs, shotguns in a gun safe in my house, because that's what we used. On one occasion, there was a lot of ambushes on the Salisbury to Umtali Road, there, sort of like towards Masasa.
Yeah.
And my boss decided, right, what we're going to do is Special Branch have got this bulletproof Alpha, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Bulletproof. So all it was a heap of lead around the driver, and we were going to drive this bulletproof Alpha up and down the road, and we would be in a Land Rover behind him with no lights on, hoping that they were going to ambush the Alpha, and we would then retaliate. And we used to drive up and down this bloody road at night. At one stage, my boss Pete was big mates with I don't know if you know the Soldier of Fortune magazine, and the editor at that stage was a guy by the name of Colonel Brown, and he had his like sidekick was a guy called John Donovan. This John Donovan was built like a brick shit house. He was big guy. Anyway, they came with us on a few of those runs, and we actually made an edition of the Soldier of Fortune magazine. And I wish I'd kept the copy, but I haven't got it. But Pete Gibson had a copy, and when you read it, he described us, the guys that he was with in that Land Rover, going up and down, and basically thinking, these guys are nuts. They're driving in the dark, waiting to get ambushed. It's like, how crazy can you be? But no, we didn't do the heliborne stuff. The guys that took over from us, they did. We didn't do that, but we used to do a lot of training. Man, we used to. Every opportunity we had, we would be out training. We would train, as I said, the guys from that special task force that they had a lot of influence on us. But yeah, we did a lot of training out the brickfields out towards the Mount Hamden there, where we would be all live ammunition, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, we did a lot of training, and the guys. When I look back, I think the guys were well prepared and not scared of. Just when I think back, it was just crazy, man. Just no one would bat an eyelid. If Pete Gibson said to us, we would follow him anywhere. He was an absolute perfect leader, Pete. Really, really good guy. Yep. Passed away a couple of years ago in South Africa. As I said, I went down and joined the special task force with him myself, and a couple of other of us went down with him. And he ended up staying. I didn't stay long. I just didn't. I just didn't like it at all. but he ended up staying. I think he ended up as a captain. But yeah, Pete was a great guy. Yeah, but yeah, SWAT was good. Very, very good. We did lots of training. Man, we did some shooting. Jeez, heaps. Yeah, and so I ended up my career in CPU. That was probably a bit of a downer at the end. I mean, things were winding down. But just before that, before we actually had to hand our weapons in, we were at the airport when that first plane brought that load of They were coming in. They were like with Yugoslavian army uniforms on, and they ended up going to the university. And in fact, in one of the books I've read, the SAS were going to attack that. They'd already mapped it out. Because they talk about that the university, and we escorted those guys to the university. We were all actually on the buses. They were inside the bus, and we were on top of the bus, escorting them there. And one of the guys, his mate was an industrial chemist, and he got this bloody mace spray in a can, and he'd made it for us, and we had it with us in our gear. And every time stuck their heads out to wave to celebrate, we sprayed them with this stuff, and they all went back in the bus. Anyway, afterwards, our ASCOM came down, and man, he wasn't happy. And he said to Pete Gibson, he said, "You guys are in big shit." He said, "Because we understand that every time that those guys wanted to say and wave hello to everybody out the windows, you guys were spraying them with deodorant spray." They didn't know that it was like chemical mace. Yeah, man, we caused some havoc there, man. Gee. But yeah, no, we escorted them there. And I also ended up at the Rhodesian Broadcasting Studios when Ian Smith and all them were doing that speech, I think a couple of nights after independence, we were there guarding him in case anything happened. Yeah.
Wow.
Yep, that was a
I had an encounter with those guys as well at Morris Depot. After I left the army, I joined the police as a party instructor at Morris Depot under Paul Schul, and I did quite a lot of work with Red Seekings as well. Fascinating man. But anyway, these guys were all standing out on the hard square with their Yugoslavian caps on and all that sort of stuff. And our secretary, a middle-aged woman, went out to her VW car to get in and go home at 3 PM when her shift ended. And she was sitting in a car, and these guys all came around her, and they were pushing the bumper, and they were intimidating her, and she went as white as a sheet. And so I was watching this from the armory where Paul's office was. And I called 3 guys. I said, "You feed an MAG, put it over there." And the 3 of us went outside with buds of poles, and there must have been about 50 of them, at least a coach load. And when they saw us coming, they sort of, and I said, "Is this how you would treat your mothers? Is this, why are you doing this to this woman? Are you proud of yourselves?" And they were getting all jittery and blah, blah, blah. And anyway, I said, "Listen, you can beat us up. There are 50 of you and 3 of us." But I turned and pointed at the MAG, but I said, "You're going to have to come through that first." And then they all backed off and got away from the motor car. And she thanked us through the window, and off she went. But what a bunch of spineless bastards, you know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah. Oh, we gave them when we escorted them to the university, man. We gave it to them. We were determined, man. We sprayed them with that bloody. That's the first time I'd ever come across mace.
Yeah.
And he in little tiny aerosol cans, and this guy, he was an industrial chemist, made it up for us. Yeah.
Well, actually, you being threatened to get into trouble, they did the same thing to me. Some chief superintendent came down and said, "What the hell are you doing, pointing MAGs at all?" I said, "If you'd been here, sir, you would have done the same thing."
Yep. Of course.
What a bunch of spineless bastards, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. No, we couldn't get over the array of uniforms though when they came back.
It was ridiculous. And, all the medals and the red hats and.
Yeah. And another thing I'll never forget is when the monitoring forces came out, when the monitoring forces came in, and the Zambian police came down, and we saw all these bloody nice Honda police motorcycles, and I was actually on the motorcycle cavalcade when Prince Charles came.
Yes.
And I used to have a photograph at that stage. There were 40 motorcycles. Anybody who could ride a bike and they managed to get a bike, they were all RDs. There were 40 bikes, and I believe it was the biggest motorcycle cavalcade that had in Rhodesia up to that date. and Prince Charles came and inspected all of us. And yeah, we practiced for bloody ages on that thing. We out there at the old Belvedere Airport, driving up and down the runway, practicing. Yeah. That was. I had a mate of mine was a photographer for the police Outpost magazine, and I had a photograph of it. But when I ended up in South Africa, I hit on some bad time, and I put all my stuff in storage, and I couldn't afford to pay the storage, and I lost everything. I had a lovely collection of all the military badges and all that sort of stuff. So when you say about the post-traumatic, that's all. I think when I think back, it's all got to do with not being able to survive, because if you think about it, we were in an environment where you were told what to do basically every single day. And when that went, even a mate of mine that I was in depot with, Paul Baird, he subsequently got killed in a road crash a good couple of years ago in Harare. His father was in the Air Force, and when Paul left the police, when I look at him, he was almost classic falling out of that structured environment where it was a structured environment. Although you were a policeman and you use your own initiative, you were still basically told what to do. You reporting, and if you come out that, a lot of guys didn't know what to do, and maybe that was part of it too. But I lost a lot of stuff, man. I took a lot of stuff up to the Mafeking shell hole up there, because there was a couple of Rhodesians up there, and I didn't know what to do with all the stuff, and I left it all up there. And a lot of my those operational blocks and all that sort of stuff, I gave it all away. Because I didn't have anywhere to put it.
Going back to Prince Charles, he went up, in my estimation, no end. I was in Rufaro Stadium on Independence evening, April the 18th, when Rhodesia became Zimbabwe and the flag came down, and I'd been allocated to Indira Gandhi as her liaison officer with the Rhodesian police. And I was in the stadium there, and Prince Charles and all those guys were up on the dais. And Nkomo walked around shaking everyone's hands, and he put his hand out to shake Prince Charles, and Prince Charles put his hand behind his back. He wouldn't shake. That was because of the Viscounts. And he went up in my estimation then. Not sure what he's like now as a king, probably New World Order leader, who knows?
Probably, yeah.
That's just my conspiracy theory. But anyway, Gavin, unless you got anything else to say,
I think so.
It's been a truly fascinating and interesting talk, and I'm glad we overcame the technical issues we had earlier in the evening.
Yeah, me too, actually.
And we've discovered by accident, since you've had to start charging your phone, that turning it sideways has actually given us the correct size picture. But anyway,
that's a shame.
We did, I don't think it's worth repeating just to get your picture looking great.
That's a shame. Anyway,
Gavin, thank you very, very much for coming on board, and please do go and look at episode 109 on PTSD.
I will.
To our viewers, please, I've said this at the end of every talk, please subscribe to this channel, and please press the like button, because that enables the YouTube bots to spread this talk further and further afield. So once again, thank you very much, and I look forward to the next talk, as I'm sure you do.
Well, Tony, there's actually something I'd like to mention, which I nearly forgot to tell you, but it's got to do with the Salisbury petrol dumps. My SWAT team was on standby at the Southerton police station that particular night. Obviously, Special Branch knew something was going to happen, but they probably didn't know when. And like I said, we were on standby at the Southerton police station, and the next minute we hear this almighty big boom in the distance, and we knew that was it. So we headed out there as quick as we could. Pete Gibson briefed us on the way, what we had to do, where we had to go. So we all hit the ground running, went to our various areas. I happened to end up in the railroad area, all the goods wagons were, and man, I tell you what, I couldn't get over at the time was the intense heat that was coming from the place, and just massive flames. And I found it afterwards that Pete Gibson and I think Steve Martin and a couple of others actually managed to get into the fuel dumps, and they attempted to drive some of the petrol tankers out and save them. Some of them they couldn't find the keys to, and so it was a bit of mass panic for them. But yeah, we just did we hit the ground, and myself and I can't remember, there was a couple of us that went around looking for the suspects and see if we could make contact with anybody, obviously, but nothing to be found. Anyway, as it happened, the whole area was subsequently cordoned off and roadblocks were put all around the place. And being still in control room one night, I found out that my dad was an A reservist. He was a police reserve A reservist, was on roadblock duties. I happened to be on night shift and paid the old man a visit on his roadblock with his fellow police reserve cronies manning the roadblocks. Yeah, so that was something that I don't think I'll ever forget, and it was just incredible how everybody knew something was going to happen, but we just couldn't stop it. And another little quirky thing that I'd like to just put in as an ending is, at one stage, my brother, who was in Grey Scouts, my dad, who was an A reserve police reservist, and myself were all away in the bush, and my mom was at home and decided that she was going to do her bit. So she put her name forward to get her truck license. Anyway, she passed it, but the police instructor who took her and taught her to drive the old Bedford told her that, "Well done, Shirley," that was my mum's name, "you passed your license, but please don't drive during peacetime." So yeah, that basically concludes my story for you. And yeah, again, thank you so much for allowing me to tell my story. Thank you.